certainly when you look at the removal suite that this deck has, you know, it matches up pretty well. Vanishing Verse is an excellent answer to Arclight Phoenix. Typically, when you have these mid-range control decks, you know, oftentimes Arclight Phoenix is the way to kind of fight through that. But this deck, not only does it have the multiple copies of Vanishing Verse, it's also main decking 2 copies of Cling to Dust. In addition, it's got a ton of hand disruption in Thoughtseize and Inquisition, and also, you know, given that you can survive and have enough time to kill all these creatures, you slam down Niv Mizzet. Good luck killing a Niv Mizzet with a bunch of Pillar of Flames and Shocks.
Right. All right, well, let's get underway here. As usual, starting things out here for Arya will be the mana, right? That's always the question. Is what lands do I have? What am I going to be able to cast? What needs to come into play tapped? What needs to not? And it looks like Arya's going to have access to Lightning Helix. So there's that.
It's a lot of Arclight Phoenixes. Eli really, really wants to find a Faithless Looting here, and he can have potentially a phenomenal turn 3.
Yeah, you do see Cling to Dust, though, in hand here for Arya, so that will mess that up at least a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Main deck Cling doing some work. Looks like 1 Phoenix in the yard here. Ooh, and there's a Watery Grave.
And an interesting,
it's tapped, though.
Interesting new addition here in Mortality Spear to the Niv Mizzet deck, where if you do gain 2 life, you can actually cast this for 2 mana. So you can set up some really nice turns. Goes really well with that Lightning Helix that you see in Arya's hand.
Oh, yeah.
Who would have thunk? Lightning Helix and Mortality Spear in the same deck, you know. And yeah, Eli was able to find Faithless Looting, so he will be able to dump a couple of those Arclight Phoenixes into the graveyard. Now, of course, Arya does have answer in at least one of them in the Cling to Dust, but I mean, Eli does have 3 of these Phoenixes. So if Arya can't find a big threat like a Teferi or a Niv Mizzet, eventually these Arclight Phoenixes could, you know, be the threat that Eli needs to fight through all the removal spells that Arya has.
Yeah, Arya's been hasn't yet fired off the Cling to Dust, but will be forced to do so shortly. You see Drown in the Loch has joined Lightning Helix and Mortality Spear to round out the hand.
We're going to see 3 Phoenixes in the graveyard now. That's another Faithless Looting here for Eli Loveman. So, I mean, sure, this Cling's going to be good, but, I mean, that's still 2 more Phoenixes coming into play this turn.
And there's the Faithless Looting for spell number 3. So now they're all in there? Okay, well. Here's like, Cling to Dust.
I guess I'll get one of the Phoenix.
Yeah. But still, a couple of them are going to jump into play here and start slamming. 23 is the life total here for Arya. But she's going to drop down to 17 after these 2 Phoenixes get in. Well, there's an Inquisition.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to be bad. You can likely going to take that Finale of Promise, as the Finale of Promise means that's just a 1-card combo to basically turn on the Arclight Phoenix again.
And then does Arya have the mana, I wonder, to do the combo that you mentioned before? You know, wait till combat happens, the 2 Phoenixes get into the zone, and then you go Helix plus Mortality Spear. You could just wipe them both off the board and take no damage.
Yeah, I imagine Eli's also going to go for the Sprite Dragon here, potentially.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like he's going for the iteration here instead.
Yeah, and if his plan was to cast Sprite Dragon, he would have done that first, right? So
right. But Eli does not have a shortage of action here. Gonna get in and yeah, I imagine you're gonna see the Helix into the Mortality Spear, but that only just stems the bleeding, right? I mean, Eli can just get back the Phoenix next turn.
Looks like Arya's decided to kind of split the difference here and not cast the Mortality Spear, at least not yet, but we may see it here on the Entity.
Yeah, I imagine you're gonna see the Mortality Spear on the entity. Save that Drown in the Lock as, you know, that is just naturally a cheaper spell.
Pillar of Flame upstairs is going to knock Arya back down to 13. With one Arclight Phoenix in play now, a pair of Drown in the Lock. And boy, she's got to be hoping to find that Niv Mizzet soon.
Yeah, and she's one card short from escaping that Cling to Dust, I believe.
Okay. So that's just basically looking for an excuse to play the Drown in the Lock then.
Yeah, I believe Cling to Dust is escape 5, and she's got 5 cards
Right.
in yard, including Cling to Dust.
Okay. So with the Drown in the Lock, she'll be able to, but not in the same turn. The tap lands, of course, are a necessity for this deck, but they do hurt. They slow you down proper. Here's Faithless Looting. Are you perhaps considering countering it here with Drown in the Lock?
Interesting.
Kind of interesting. And Loveman also with just 2 lands in hand would shut down the rest of the action for the turn. But there is still
Oh, look at
plenty
this.
to do. Oh, is that the card needed for the Ox to come into play?
It looks like it.
Rough.
And I imagine Arya's going to counter this, right?
Has to.
Wait, no,
Or
can't.
wait,
no,
the Drown in
everything
the
gets
Lock's-
escaped, of course.
That's brutal.
My brain is not in standard mode right now, so I don't recognize this interaction until the next round.
Right. When normally we see this with End of the Story and Drown in the Lock in the mirror match. But here, it's not. This is tough. Because once those cards are exiled, the Drown in the Lock goes from being a kill or counter anything to a kill or counter kind of nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I think Eli may end up with no cards in graveyard.
It has to be close, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's escape 8. That is a lot of cards.
Right. Let's see how many are left after the Ox goes. Because remember, with multiple Faithless Lootings...
2 lootings and a Phoenix, it looks like. Yeah, this is... Oh, can't even Drown in the Lock.
Nope.
Yeah, and that's got to be it.
Yeah, an Inquisition off the top. It just says, not enough to get the job done. And that is game number 1 going to Eli Loveman. We'll see if Arya can find something here out of the board to help shore it up. Because sometimes that is also the case, right? Where the game 1 matchup is, say, favorable for the Phoenix player, but not a blowout. But then post-board, things can change around a lot. You know, one of the big advantages, of course, of playing a deck that plays all 5 colors is you get access to pretty much whatever you want out of the board.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you can see, we got a couple of copies of Grafdigger's Cage, which is going to be extremely, extremely strong here as it shuts down Faithless Looting, Arclight Phoenix, and of course that Ox of Agonis. So that's going to be big. You know, again, the Arclight Phoenix, that's the card that's the most problematic card for Arya, right? Because your helixes or spot removal spells just aren't going to be all that effective because Eli can bring them back. So need to do as many things as possible to basically fight Eli from that axis. Because if it just comes down to Eli just resolving Stormwing entities, Arya has plenty of spot removal spells to just kill Sprite Dragons and Stormwing entities. It's really the Arclight Phoenix that's the most problematic.
We'll see if Arya can get the job done as we see Eli Loveman put the finishing touches on the sideboard plan.
Yeah, and Eli just basically cutting all the removal spells because none of your burn spells do anything in the matchup other than go to the face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lightning Axe is 1 damage short, doesn't quite get the Niv Mizzet, so
Right.
won't be able to get it done there.
I wonder if you want Ether Gust.
Yeah, that's something to consider for Niv Mizzet.
Right.
Buy yourself some time. But perhaps just opting to go for Mystical Dispute instead. And also, if you note here, Eli also boarding out a copy of Faithless Looting here, thinking that he's going to be kind of, he's not all in on just the Phoenix, and Faithless Looting is naturally a card that puts you down cards, right? It doesn't actually get you ahead on cards, or it's not card neutral, like a card like Brainstorm or Opt. So if you think you're playing against a deck with a lot of removal spells and it's a little grindier, you can afford to shave a card like that in this matchup.
Okay, well, there's finally Niv Mizzet showing up here for Arya, but the only other spell she has is Enlightening Helix. But looks like she's going to roll with it. It is Niv Mizzet. It is that. And she's on the play. And has all of her colors? Yeah, looks like it.
Yep.
So in Lightning Helix we trust, says Arya. Passes the turn back over. Faithless Looting is the name of the game here for Loveman. And double Arclight Phoenix snapped off into the graveyard. The good news, though, from Arya's perspective, now she doesn't know this, of course, though. Oh, there's another Phoenix. Is that Eli isn't very proactive with the spells. He's actually got a very reactive hand with Negate, Dispute, and Fry, as well as Chandra for another couple of turns. And what is that? Maybe an Opter or something down on the corner. But Flash, yeah, it is an Opt. There's Faithless Looting, though. This could find
Phoenix.
Another Phoenix. And then there's also Expressive Iteration. Why is Fry here, by the way?
I believe for Teferi.
Ah, gotcha. We're going to see Arya cycle. Jeez. Look at that graveyard, dear God. Oh, another couple of lands. Brutal. Now, next turn, it will be Niv Mizzet O'Clock, as they say. But Mystical Dispute could really ruin the plan here.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I'm curious what Eli's going to go for here, because you could go Expressive Iteration, hope to hit a spell, and then go Opt spell, return 3 Phoenix. However, that leaves you vulnerable to a turn 5 Niv Mizzet, and given that he's got that Mystical Dispute, it looks like Eli's going to play this a little slower, and it's going to end up paying off for him.
That makes a lot of sense. And not a whole lot else to do here for Arya. Either hold back with Mortality Spear plus Lightning Helix and or cycling the Ralgren Triumph, or just run out Niv Mizzet cold, and it looks like she's going to play the patient game. So both players recognizing that a lot of how this game can end revolves around whether Niv Mizzet hits the battlefield. And Arya saying, I'd prefer for that to happen, while Eli said, I will say no. Thank you very much.
And Eli trying to get a little more aggressive here, just running at the Brazen Bower, forcing Arya to respond to this in some way. Given that he's going to miss a land drop here, running this iteration out.
Yeah, this could be huge.
And also, if he does hit, if he can find a couple of cheap spells, he's not going to quite be able to.
Yo, he might, right?
Well, if he can find the Faithless Looting. The problem is he really wants to keep up Mystical Dispute for Niv Mizzet. So, did I speak too soon? All right. Never mind.
Yeah, he did. Because he had the extra blue there. So he ended up going Opt into Opt. And he's just going to say, all right, I'm just going to pile on as much damage as I can here. But as you said, this does matter, right? Because only red mana available here for Loveman means that is a green light here for Arya.
Look at that. It's just on the stack. It's ready to go.
Don't care what I draw. It's not going to be better than this. Ooh, only 2 cards off of Niv Mizzet. Vanishing Verse, which is quite strong here, and Mortality Sphere. So not bad.
Yeah, and I like just attacking with the Phoenix. If Arya blocks, then you can run out Chandra and finish off the Niv Mizzet here.
Yeah, this is going to mean that Arya is going to need to find another copy of Niv Mizzet at some point to kind of go over the top in this game, because while not a ton of damage is taken here, and while she does have removal spells at the ready, she needs more.
Yeah, and now you're going to see Mortality Spear on Chandra and Vanishing Verse on Arclight Phoenix. But, I mean, take a look at Eli's hand. It's still, there's a good amount of action there, and he's got a negate here to keep that Chandra in play.
Yeah, that's definitely well worth fighting over. Now, this Vanishing Verse could kill Chandra. Nope, looks like it's just going to be the Phoenix. Okay.
Going for the Phoenix there instead. So now Eli has a consistent source of card advantage here in the Chandra. What a hit.
Yeah, it's nasty.
What a hit.
Yeah, super tough spot.
Storming Entity.
Because the Vanishing Verse is tempting to use on the Arclight Phoenix because it exiles. But boy, you leave a Chandra in play, and that is going to make your life extraordinarily difficult.
And we hit We had a Finale of Promise as well.
Oh, yeah. All
So-
lands in hand here for Arya. Oof.
Yeah, no shortage of action here from Eli.
Yeah,
mean,
Eli's kind of doing it.
Yeah. This, you know, one Phoenix maybe you can deal with, but 3, that's a big axe. And
He's rough.
and both games, Eli was able to put multiple Arclight Phoenix into his graveyard.
Deciding between Opt and Brainstorm here. And then there's
Yeah.
the Expressive Iteration.
Yeah, so it has to go for 2 there because no more Magma Sprays. I believe that's the only, not Magma Spray.
Pillar.
Pillar. That's the only 1-mana sorcery in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Okay, play Sulphur Falls. And you can go for Stormwing
Just do
Entity
everything.
here. Yep, just do all the things.
And those are
Wow.
very good Magic cards.
This
Probably
deck never
topping
runs
both.
out of gas
Oh,
from
no.
here. Incredible.
Oh, no.
Oh boy, there's double Arclight Phoenix. Down to 8 goes Arya, who draws a Mystical Dispute. Now, we do
I was
have a
gonna
few triumphs to cycle, but with the mana situation here, this is going to get very, very tight, and it's another
Yeah.
land off the top of the library. And this one for Arya just did not come together. It's Eli Loveman standing up for the Izzet players there and picking up the victory 2-0. Paul, the first game felt like a really great draw there from Eli. And the second game, just not enough action from Arya's side.